Beautiful, like the rainbow. Folks, that is so true. Um, on Thursday, this last week, I officially started as a waitress at a restaurant in the town that I live in. Um, I'm not gonna lie, I've never worked in the restaurant industry before. This is definitely a different scenario for me, a completely different situation for me. This is not something I'm used to by any means or stretch of the imagination, but I want to welcome everybody back to the Quasiguru Twitch channel. Today, I think I would like to talk about mental health and how it impacts people specifically in the LGBTQIA space. Um, because I'll tell you what, the last few days have been like an eye opener for me, right? And there's a lot of things about mental health that I think are really important, right? And today, like for instance, I'm not doing too bad. I'm actually doing okay despite the circumstances of everything that's actually happened today. But folks, I want to start off with this really quick. I just want to say this. If you would like to join in and talk with me today on the server, come join the Quasiguru Discord server, join the Quasiguru live stream channel. That way you can talk with me on stream. Because I think this is kind of an important discussion to have, right? We need to be talking more about mental health and the way that this impacts everybody and the way that this impacts each of us as individuals. Because no matter what, remember something, folks, that no matter what job you have, no matter what else may be going on in your life, your mental health is one of the most important things that you need to focus on, right? And don't ever think that you're not good enough. Remember that we're all going through something together. And it's always something that we're all going to go together with, right? And that's something that if we can talk to each other and we can come together as a community and just embrace each other and say, you know what, you're not the only one going through this. This is more than just you. This is me. This is everyone around us, right? Mental health is such a it's such a broad spectrum of things, right, that we need to focus on. And I want you to understand this, that no matter what, you are important, you are loved, that you are here, and that's what's important. Folks, let's have the conversation. Let's talk about mental health and how it affects our community, right? You know, today I was thinking about this while I was at work, right? Um, Yesterday I was misgendered quite a few times, and I think I handled it fairly well, even though I kept slipping into really bad like points of gender dysphoria. And today I had like completely different situations happen at work and didn't even have anything to do with that, right? But like, I mean, you can say one thing to someone and it can completely impact and change the way that they feel the next day, right? It doesn't really matter what it is. But the one thing I want to remind everybody is that, you know, embracing each other, showing each other love is what's really important. It's having that connection with each other, right? And letting people know that you're there for them. I know this is not the typical stream for Quasiguru. I'm not flying an airplane today, but I figured I'd start up and go ahead and do this stream tonight. I know it may not be the most popular, right? Because I'm not flying an airplane or, you know, driving a truck, I guess. But I think it's important that we talk about safe spaces and the fact that, you know, they do exist, right? I belong to this wonderful um, LGBT LGBTQ Discord. That's amazing. And it's a really good support network, right? It's making sure that you have those support networks in place. That way, you know, you're not just lost, right? That way you're not always lost and feeling like you're lost. But folks, come on in here, join in here with the Quasir live stream on the Discord. I would love to talk with you too as well. Also, if you'd like to play any strong songs here on the stream today, it's !SR space with the title of the song or a YouTube link. Oh, I love this song. Mary Lambert is so incredible. And it's interesting because tonight, for instance, I've been like in this stuck state of mind where I'm just like, can anything go right or wrong? And in all honesty, like, I'm not even going to say that things are really going completely wrong either, because things are going pretty well, per se, I guess, So I guess that's what really matters. I guess that's what matters. But I'm just doing some thinking here. Doing some thinking. I will be getting back to streaming here soon. Tomorrow's my only day off this week. So maybe I can catch a stream tomorrow for everybody. Maybe flying again, which would be fun. I've actually kind of missed that since I've been starting this job, and I'll tell you what, I will say this right now, Quasi Guru as a server, as a waitress, it's different. And I will tip my hat to anybody in the service industry, because just in this small amount of time, I've seen a lot of what servers go through myself and what other coworkers are going through. And folks, it's not an easy job. The minimum wage for a server is crap. And just remember something that, don't be mean to your wait staff. Please don't. It's not what you want to do. You got to understand that no matter what you do is going to reflect upon us, and we have to go home with those thoughts and feelings at the end of the night too, So I just want to throw that out there really quick. Trying to vibe tonight, though. Trying to vibe. Hopefully everyone's doing okay. Yeah, I don't know. Doing some thinking tonight. Just trying to process my thoughts, trying to process everything that's happened since Thursday. And I'm really excited about this new job. It's really helpful, actually. I like I said, I started Thursday, and I've never been a waitress before, and it's kind of nice. It's going really well so far. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm making my mistakes and I'm learning from them pretty fast, but aside from that, though, everything seems to be going okay doing this. So honestly, I'm in a good space to talk to people. Folks, if you would like to come and join into the Discord so you can talk here on stream with me, I would love to have you on board the stream with me to talk today, because I think, once again, mental health is a really important factor to discuss, because, honestly, mental health for all of us, I think, is the most important thing that we need to focus on, because if we don't focus on that, what do we realistically have? I mean, seriously, what do we have? We don't have anything without our mental health, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, yeah, physical health is important too, right? But our mental health can affect our physical health, right? And I know our physical health can do the same with the mental health, but I'll tell you what, though, from what I've learned, at least over the last, 3-4 years, especially since my, fiance passed away from heart complications, right? Um, it's been difficult for me, right? And don't get me wrong, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. And I'm just now starting to try to get back into the dating world and trying to meet people. And it's not easy. It's not easy being a trans woman trying to date, right? It's really difficult. And, look, I'm not going to claim I'm the most pretty little thing out there, because I'm not. And I know that. But like today, for instance, I'm feeling myself. I really am. I'm feeling myself. I feel great. I had my eyebrows waxed earlier this week, and I did some things for self care that were important for me, right? Because I knew that in order for me to be able to persevere and conquer and push forward, it was more than just getting up every day, right? And that's the thing. I had to conquer, I had to persevere, I had to push through and do things that I'm not always comfortable with, right? And I'm grateful that I've been doing it, right? I'm grateful that I keep pushing myself to go back to this new job, because in the back of my brain, of course, right? Like, the back of my brain says I'm doing a terrible job, and I'm always really, really critical of myself, right? So when something really doesn't go right, I'm extra critical of myself. Folks, just to let you know, I do have several diagnoses myself with mental health. I've got borderline personality disorder, major depressive disorder, and generalized anxiety disorder. So I'm kind of a little care package of fun. Luckily, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I'm saying this luckily in my case because I don't think this applies to everyone, right? I was able to go off all of my mental health medications, which was great for me. It's not for everybody. But I initially cut it cold turkey, which was the worst thing to do. And I had to go back on, like, step them and titrate down and do all this other stuff. And right now, I will say this. Um, I feel like at this point in my life, a combination of therapy as well as being on meds has helped me. But I would say therapy has helped me the most, at least, to be able to conquer some of the problems that I faced, at least. And always remember this, that no matter what happens, right, in your life, um, we need to remember that you're not alone, right? You're not alone. There's somebody else that's probably going through something similar, right? And it may not be exactly the same, but you're not alone, especially if you struggle with mental health, right? You're not alone. Folks, I love you. If you feel like you need someone to talk to, come reach out to me. Come shout at me on my Discord, even, right? Send me a PM, drop into my DMs, folks, because I think that's important, right? Show love to each other, show support to each other, because that's what we need to do. Whoa, Emmy, thank you so much for the raid. Folks, we're having a discussion today about mental health in the LGBTQIA plus community. And for me, I just started a new job, which was probably one of the best things I could have ever done for myself, even, right? But Emmy, thank you so much for the party of 7 raid. I appreciate that. Um, but I want to say this right now, and I want you to understand this. No matter where you're at in your life, right? No matter where you are at, understand you're not the only person going through this, right? You don't have to be the only person going through this. Remember the fact that you need to reach out, talk to other people, understand that we're here for each other, right, folks? And I want to say this really quick. If you're not already part of this channel or my Discord, drop my Discord. If you feel like you need someone to talk to, drop me a DM. I will respond to you, folks. And lately, I will say this, my schedule has been absolutely crazy since I started being a waitress. It's actually been a lot more work than I thought it would be. And I do understand now why wait staff feels the way they do at times. So dependent on tips to make an income, right? And like, I know Saturday, like, I barely made minimum wage, right? Barely made minimum wage because the tips I got. But I will say this though, I'm getting better at it, right? I'm pushing through, and that's helping my mental health a little bit because it feels like I've got something I can aim for. I got a new goal that I can try it within my life, right? And sometimes it's finding those little things to grab onto to say, you know what? Life could be better, but part of it is it's about allowing yourself to make it better too. Folks, we're in the Quasi-Guru live stream voice channel on my Discord. If you'd like to come join in, I'd love to have you. Feel free to join in on the server and come join me. Come talk on the stream with me because I think this is important. But today, folks, I was reading on a Discord server that I belong to about dead names, right? Dead names, and some places, for instance, requiring dead names, right? Without even form of ID. And you know what, folks? There's a lot of that in the flight sim community, right? I'm not going to name places. I'm not going to do it, but I will say this. Add-on plane makers do this, right? ATC services do this. And it's sad because for people that are genderqueer, for people that are in the trans community, right? It's not easy, right? To be dead named. And you know, for me, for instance, I had my name changed legally back in 2010, I believe. And it wasn't an easy process either. It was actually a really difficult process to go through with that. And I'll tell you what, it's not an easy thing to go through, right? But what I will say is this much. Folks, if it's a volunteer organization or volunteer forum or something like that, Don't dead name yourself because of their policy. You know what? Here's the thing. You're an individual. You're a human being. As far as I'm concerned, screw what they say about dead naming yourself. If they're not checking your ID, they don't need to know what your damn dead name is. And I'll tell you this right now. If you come to me and you talk to me and you tell me what your name is, that's your name to me, right? You don't have to tell me your dead name. And even if you did, girl, boy, however you identify, it's not going to matter to me. Your dead name is something of the past. It's not something that should predict your current life, right? It should never predict your current life, folks. It's important that you remember that you are human, that you're an individual, that you're loved, and we're all here for you, people. We're all here for you. I want this to go out from the bottom of my heart to all of your hearts as well. Folks, I'm here to support you. And I know a lot of you are here to support me too, right? I feel like we lean on each other. It's a really good positive thing for us all to come together and show each other love and just be there for each other. And to me, that's what really matters. Like, for instance, today, guys, everyone, ladies, men, boys, girls, however you identify, I'm here for you. I really am. I feel like, you know, in the 33 years I've been on this earth, I feel like I've learned a couple things, right? And I'm still learning, right? I'm still learning. I am. I'm definitely still learning, and I don't want to listen to country music right now. Sorry, I really don't. Unless you folks want to, once again, drop an !SR space with the title of the song you would like to listen to. I'd love to have some more variety here on the channel. Or if you want me to just keep the music off while we talk, we can do that too. But welcome everybody in from Emmy's stream. I believe Abby's in here as well. Hello. I love you all. I really do. I want you to understand that that's sincere, that that's something that I really mean, and that if you need someone to talk to, just know that I'm here. Don't ever set yourself as saying that you're not good enough for somebody. Don't ever say to yourself that you're not good enough for anyone and that you feel like you don't need to be here on Earth, folks. It's not worth it. No job, no volunteer organization is worth that. But I will tell you what's worth it, folks. It's getting better. It's doing what you need to do to be better for yourself. It's doing what we need to do for others to support them so that we can actually become better for each other as a community. Folks, I came out back in, I believe it was, oh God, I believe it was 2008. It was the beginning of my sophomore year. And when I initially came out, I came out to a theater teacher of mine. He doesn't talk to me anymore, and that's because initially he really only could accept me, I guess, if I came out as gay. He wouldn't take, accept me if I came out as transgender. And it's funny because, he's gay himself, right? But I know that there's that group of people that exist too, right? Like that older group of people that exist. They're not always the most supportive of trans people. And I know there's this really big disconnect even in the LGBTQIA plus community, right? Between LGB and the T's, right? And there's even that big disconnect between LG and B's, right? Because honestly, it's so crazy, right? Like it's okay to be gay, or it's okay to be bi, or it's okay to be trans, but it's not okay to be an entire part of the community. I think we need to change that. We need to change that. We need to find a way to be able to come together better. And I think over time it has been changing. There has been some improvements, but of course there's a very large older population still that does not believe in trans people. They don't believe in bi people. They don't believe in pan people, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of people that just don't believe in us as a group, right? And, you know, I actually had a one of my last couple streams, I believe, I had actually somebody come in and they sent a message on my stream asking if I was trans. And obviously, you know, as of late, I've been more open about it. I've decided to be more supportive for the community and trying to be more of a representation for the community, as, you know, somebody that, you know, actually existing here in this community. And so if you want to know more about me, folks, I just punched an exclamation mark quasi into the chat. I'm a trans woman. I use she, her pronouns. If you'd like to know more about me, go check out this YouTube video. Folks, if it's difficult for you to watch someone's essential coming out story and the struggles they went through, it may be difficult to watch that. But I will tell you this, though, it'll at least give you some perspective on me. And that video was made back in, I believe, 2009. Yeah, I think my legal name change was end of 2009. So that would have been 2009 as well. But the thing is that it was made for the Trevor Project, right? And if you folks don't know about Trevor, you know, a gay kid, you know, was being bullied at school. He ended up committing suicide. And folks, I want to let you know something right now, that no matter what happens in your life, even though it seems like a good answer to let everything go, it's never a good idea. It's never a good idea to just let go and just die, right? Things do get better, and I do promise all of you that no matter what happens in your lives, things can and will get better. But what it does take is sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it takes a new environment. For me, for instance, and I have a hard time with this. This is just me being open and honest with everybody. But for me, I dropped family out of my life. And I remember when I was still seeing a therapist, I would discuss this a lot. Because for me, mom would dead name me a lot. She would misgender me a lot. And my family was always pushing me to go back to my mom. And while I do want that connection with my mom again, especially now that she's getting older and, you know, she's not in the best health. She has Parkinson's right now. While I do want that connection because she's still my mom, unfortunately for me, you know, I had to cut ties. And I did it for my own mental health. So I want to say this right now, that if you're not thinking about it, mental health is the most important part of anything in your life. Self-care is the most important part, because if you don't have self-care, if you don't have your mental health, what do you really have left? It's really nothing, right? So with that being said, folks, I want to invite you to come join here in the Quasi Guru live stream channel if you'd like to talk with me. You can come in onto my Discord. Oh, I clicked the wrong thing here. Come on in on my Discord, join my Quasi Guru live stream channel chat. Because I think it's important, right? And I understand, you know, maybe if you don't want to talk, you want to talk in the chat, you're more than welcome to as well. But like I said, I want everyone to know that no matter what happens, that you've got a friend here, that you've got a safe space and place here on my channel, no matter who you are in this community. I want you to know that I am here. And there may not always be days that I can be, right? Because maybe there's some days I need to look out for my own mental health and I need to be able to boost myself up. But I've been pretty good lately as of reaching out and talking to people when I'm not doing well. Folks, I have suffered from, oh God, I used to suffer from suicidal ideation daily. Okay. And I wouldn't say it happens very often anymore, and they're not active thoughts, they're passive when they do happen, right? But at the same time, though, I want you to know that you are loved. You are loved, and you can be loved. And don't ever feel like you can't be. Don't ever feel like you're a bad girlfriend or a bad boyfriend because of something that may have happened. The thing is, if you ever feel that way, ask yourself why. Ask yourself why. And if you need someone to talk to, come talk to me. Because honestly, I would love to talk with you. I want, like I said, I want this to be a safe place and space for you all to be able to talk. And honestly, that's what my focus has been more on as of late. And don't get me wrong, yeah, I still fly on VATSIM, and I still fly airplanes, and I'm planning on still doing some more American truck sim because I did drive truck when I was a little bit younger. But the thing is, at the end of the day, folks, no matter what happens, I'm here for you. I feel that. Off to Hitman Habit. I feel that. It's difficult, right? Um, I feel like towards how should I say this? So I know every person's different, right? But like for me, when I first came out, I was a lot more feminine presenting. Um, and in a way, it was positive at the time. And then I started realizing that that doesn't always work. And I personally feel like I don't always have the ability to pass, right? And part of that is caused by um part of that really is caused by, mental health, right? Because you're focused so much on what's negative, or you're focused so much on gender dysphoria. You're not really focused on what really seems to matter, And the thing is like I said, I learned over time that I would much rather be myself than someone that I'm not. And that doesn't mean that I'm my old dead name. That doesn't mean that I am a man or a boy, right? That doesn't mean that at all. I'm a woman, I'm a girl, I'm a female, I am who I am, right? And I could personally give two shits about what anybody else thinks at this point. And you know what the thing is I'm 33 now. I'm 33. And when I was younger, I turned some more heads, right? I even turned heads when I was driving truck. A lot of people thought that, I was just a woman born woman. And sometimes that was incredibly dangerous, especially driving semi, because there's a lot of creepy truck drivers out there. There are, okay? There really are. And there are people that will follow you back to your truck because they expect something out of you. And then there was one time I applied for a position to work for an owner operator, okay? I applied for a position to work for an owner operator that had his own truck, and he's planning on buying me a truck, and he wanted to take me out with him, for one load. I went out with him for one load, and what do you think he expected out of me? What do you think he expected out of me? Obviously, one thing and one thing only. He wanted sex, right? And this was I believe a UPS. This was a UPS shuttle load that was going from like Indianapolis up to somewhere in Michigan, okay? And this was going to be an airport load. So we were going into an airport. It was going to go directly onto an airplane, right? And then after that, um it was going to go. But the thing is that we had to wait cuz he had to drop the trailer at the dock, and he wanted me to get in the sleeper with him and maybe just watch a movie or something. Well, then he wants to cuddle, and then he wants to basically try to pressure me into doing something I wasn't willing to do. And so the thing is that I think a lot of the way I present myself now is more of a protection mechanism. Because for me, I don't want to be, how should I say it? I'm finally getting back into dating, right? I'm starting to feel better about dating. I'm starting to feel better about being around other people, and even, being more open with them, right? But like to me, um, and mind you, of course, me getting into serving and being a waitress, I'm starting to wear makeup again, which is kind of nice because it's a refreshing thing because like I said, after my significant other passed away back in God, what is it now? 2018, I believe. June of 2018 when he passed away. Um folks, I've been an emotional wreck these last few years. I have been, oh my God, I'll just say this right now. I think in between 2017 and 2018 alone, I was hospitalized probably 4 or 5 times for suicidal ideation. And I'm not going to say that I haven't been close to that as of late because I have been. All right, I have been. And there's been times in which I feel like I should probably go to the hospital. But then again, I also had a really bad experience the last time I went into a hospital. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't go get help if you need it, right? I definitely believe that you should go get help if you need it. I really do think that's true, right? Because I think that's important. I think it's important to bring yourself in to get help if you truly need it. Because, like I said, the thing is, at the end of the day, life's not worth giving up on. Even though it may seem like it is at times, right? Like, I mean, I have passive thoughts a lot, right? I have passive thoughts a lot about dying or just being able to disappear from this planet. And for me, those passive thoughts sometimes become active, but I remember something that, my reset switch is sleep, right? And I think that's a reset switch for a lot of people with depression because people that do get depressed, what's the one thing we like to do? We like to become recluses. We like to draw ourselves to our bed because it's almost better to sleep than it is to have those negative thoughts constantly running through your brain. Right. And for me lately, I've noticed that that's always been the most helpful thing for me. Exactly. And that's the thing, right? More often than not, straight or gay top ends up wanting to submit cuddle B sub, which got confusing. Exactly, yeah. And I get that. Hofty hit me and Hobbit. I mean, there are some people that do feel more homicidal thoughts and suicidal. Um, yeah, exactly. Tomorrow's a new day. Not so sure exactly. And depression does that to you. It really does because you get driven into these things where you're like, is tomorrow really going to be better? Right. And like, for instance, like me starting this new waitress position. Oh my God. I started training Thursday. I started getting my own tables on Friday. And then Saturday was a really bad day. And then today was an okay day, but there were some problems that I ran into that just weren't good. And, I ended up crying during my shift. And like I said, I understand why wait staff now. It's not, the easiest thing in the world. And for the money that wait staff do make, hourly, it's absolutely crazy. And there's a reason why tipping is very, very important in the service industry. And I'll say that again because I've been doing, gig work for the last, 2 years? Um, so I know how important tipping is in the industry, and I've always been the person to tip when I go out to eat, right? But there are some people that won't do it just because you did one little thing wrong, right? And it's absolutely insane because, of course, that causes your day to spiral and you start to go downhill and everything all of a sudden doesn't feel right, So, but okay, so let me catch up here, Hofty Hitman Habits. So 46, turn my bathroom, total pink when girlfriend moved out. That's kind of cool though. Totally dressed for the job. I applied straight looking at food places, got work, but often if applying for front, most owners will admit yeah, and that's the thing, Hofty Hitman Habit. And for me, luckily, I'm not really having problems with where I'm at right now. I do live in Northwest Indiana. Hey Louie, how are you doing? Hopefully you're okay. Um, I'm just having a conversation about mental health, and how it affects people in the LGBTQIA plus space, and how it's basically affected me. Well, and that's completely different. But over here in the U.S., for instance, I think let me actually look up server wages because I'm not sure what the wages are. I know they're absolutely asinine though; they're terrible. Um, so the server wage here in Indiana, actually, this is I'm pretty sure across all the states, it's $2.13 an hour, U.S., which is absolutely asinine, right? Um, and it's one thing, if you're getting paid appropriately, right? But if you're not tipped in the night, like for instance, I made basically minimum wage on Saturday because it was a really slow night and I had a lot of people that came in unhappy immediately, right? And of course, it's not always easy to turn someone's day around when they come in unhappy. Um, Sunday I did pretty good. Tonight I didn't do too bad. I could have done a lot better, but I also had um two tables leave. I wasn't very excited about that, but um the one table I could have probably done better with. The other one that just decided to leave just because, and they weren't even there that long. That's what really bothered me. Um it's weird in Canada, Calgary, all tap machines the vendors are using now always ask if you want to give 30%, 20%, 15% tip, even at McDonald's, really. Well, and that's the thing. You got to remember something because what people here in the US don't at least always understand is especially people that haven't been in the service industry, right? It's absolutely ridiculous to actually think that, you know, it's acceptable by any means to tip less than 20%, 15 to 20%, right? I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I understand the mentality behind maybe not tipping well, but the thing is you're also messing with somebody else's livelihood and their way of paying bills. And I'll tell you what, that's the last thing I'm going to do. Even if I'm unhappy with someone's service, I've never tipped lower than 20%. I will tip more than 20. There have been times where I've tipped 50 to 75% of my bill. Right? And I'm not saying, I'm rich because I'm not. And I don't go out to eat very often. And that's probably the reason why I also tip a lot higher too, is because I don't go out to eat very often. I mean, here where I live, if I do go out to eat, I'm probably going somewhere that's fast food, right? Um, if I made more than minimum wage, I tip. Well, and see, I get that too, but I think it's very important that if you do go out, that you do have something set back to tip though, because if you don't tip, think about what's happening to the people that are in the service industry. Think about that. They're only making $2.13 an hour. And believe me when I tell you this, I made on Saturday in 7 hours, I only made $32 in tips. So think about that really quick. So basically, at that point, then they're making less than you are. Exactly. Exactly. Think about that really quick, Hofty Hitman Habit. So I know you're saying because you're up there in Canada, right? Your minimum wage is a lot better up there. But if you come down here, our minimum wage for servers, okay, is $2.13 an hour. So think about that. If I have, let's say, two tables an hour and neither of them tip, in that 1 hour, I made $2.13. In that 1 hour, I made $2.13 and I brought them their food. I brought them something to drink. And I helped potentially bust their table. And then at the end of the night, I lose $5 in tips for paying bus people, which I'm okay with that. That's fine. That doesn't bother me at all, right? Because they help us a lot. But for me, the reason why I accepted it, if you want the truth, is I've been struggling for the last 2 years to find something consistent. For instance, this last month I applied to over 30 jobs. Um, and I didn't get a single call back on any of them. And um, long story short, what ended up happening to me in the trucking industry was absolutely garbage. I was in one of the worst mental conditions I've ever been in my life. Um, and it's sad. Um, so it's not like I've got a criminal record because I don't, right? I don't have a criminal record, but it's just it's sad because like I was really good in the logistics industry. I used to drive truck. I have worked in the office, but the problem is right now, at least down here in the U.S. where I live, there's a lot of jobs that are posting positions, but those jobs are cherry picking out of hundreds and hundreds of candidates. So there's a lot of people here in the US that make the comment saying that, oh yeah, you can just go find a job. Well, I'm gonna say this right now. It helps a lot more when you're potentially cisgender to go get a job, right? But if you're transgender and let's say you're not 100% passing all of the time, it makes it a lot more difficult, you know. And I know that when I initially went in for this job, um, one of the girls said, "Have you ever been a waitress or a waiter before?" And I was glad she said it like that because at least it opened up the possibility of having that potential just really quick. I've never been a waitress before, right? But in the same regards, in the same respect, it also was disabling. So, and I agree with that. I think so too. Um, Especially down here in the US, there was a lot of um, banter back and forth about what really is helpful, right? Um, Folks, if you're just joining me here and you want to see flight sim content or trucking content, tonight's not the night. We're having a mental health discussion. I am a trans woman. I'm 33 years old, and I am having a discussion about mental health because I think it's important, and I want everyone to know that there are people out here that love you, respect you, that no matter what, we want to be able to embrace you and surround you and say, you know what, that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay because you have somebody around you, that you're not the only person going through something difficult, that there's been other people like us that have gone through things similar to this before, and that no matter what, things will get better. um I don't have these discussions often, right? I did a just chatting thing, I think 3 weeks ago, talking about a new direction for the Quasi-Guru channel, and talking about what I'd like to focus on more, right? Having these conversations about bringing people together and talking about working together as a community and working together with other trans people and letting people know that, you're not alone, right? And I'm really excited because as of late, I've been doing a little bit more Twitch watching, and Emmy actually showed me a girl's Twitch the other day. She's twitch.tv/Willow. Really cool human being, folks. Trans woman. Absolutely amazing. So pretty. And there's other trans people here on Twitch that are actually really popular. Like, for instance, she's a partnered streamer, so she's got that purple check mark by her name. I saw the other day another trans streamer that does a lot of um oh gosh, I'm trying to think what game she mainly plays. I think it's League of Legends or something. But it was kind of cool though to see that we've actually got a much bigger representation in this community than I ever thought before. And like, for instance, when I first started streaming, I was always so worried because I think I started like streaming a little bit back in January, and then in February, I think I became a Twitch affiliate. When I first started streaming, I was so worried about turning on that camera, right? Because I was concerned about losing potential friends, potential viewers, people to talk to. Louis, I may not be popular yet, but as far as I'm concerned, though, popularity um, only gets you so far, right? And something I've learned, at least from this last month, even, right? I'm grateful to have the consistent people that I have coming back here to say hello and hi. Um, like Louis, for instance, for you, Emmy, Abby, a lot of other people in this community, like Mr. Pilot, 14AD, um, Complete Freedom, um, Slayer T. Um, and what I've learned is that just because I'm trans doesn't necessarily mean that I'm invaluable as a human being. It doesn't mean that I'm unpopular as a Twitch streamer, because I've got this group of people that like to come by and say hello and want to show me that, they want to support and care for me and just be around. And, for the longest time there, I was so like worried about subscriptions and tips and all of this other stuff. But honestly, I'm not really worried about that anymore, because I care more about the friendship that I've got with everybody here, right? I care more about the people that want to stop by and say hello and how are you doing, and let's talk about flight simulator content. Let's talk about the newest PMDG release. Let's talk about the newest Azobo update that breaks Microsoft Flight Simulator. Like, to me, that's enjoyable because it's what we enjoy together, right? And it doesn't matter gay, straight, bi, cisgender, right, transgender. It doesn't matter who the hell you are, because we all agree on something. We enjoy something together, right? And our sexualities, our gender identities have absolutely nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. Because we all enjoy flying with each other, or we enjoy doing American Truck Simulator with each other, or we enjoy playing pirates, right, in other games, or we enjoy all of these other things. And that's because sexuality doesn't matter in this case, right? Or gender identity doesn't matter in this case. We just enjoy each other's company. And to me, that's the most valuable thing on this planet. Um, Honestly, Louis, yeah, it's pretty bad. Over here in the US, it's pretty severe. I would say it's at least, how should I say it? So, of course, you've got your keyboard cowboys, right? That won't ever say anything to your face in real life. But I think that exists in a lot of communities all around the world. I will say this, at least it's not as dangerous as some other countries. Like, of course, some other countries, for instance, being gay alone could get you killed. Um, and I'm not saying it can't happen here in the US, because it does happen here in the US. Like, for instance, this year alone, let me see here really quick, because I'm just curious, because I didn't really look up these statistics for last year, but I used to talk about this a lot on my Facebook. Um, I'm going to look at last year here and see if I can actually get some statistics. Um, so as of last year, 2020 had already seen at least 44 transgender or gender nonconforming people fatally shot or killed by other violent means. The majority of which were black and Latinx transgender women. We say at least because too often these stories go unreported or misreported. So with that being said, folks, this is coming from Human Rights Campaign, hrc.org. So this is not even touching the edge of how many people were murdered in the United States this last year because they were potentially transgender, right? This is just being reported on some small scale, right? Because not all transgender deaths go reported, right? But here in the US, it's pretty disturbing because unfortunately, being trans is very, how should I say, we are a very niche market in a sense, right? Because we don't exist between any lines of being accepted as, I feel like, legit people in a way, right? Like, I feel like if the US really could get away with it, which I think they could have possibly under a previous campaign, but I feel like we would be classified as like a quarter of a person or a half of a person if our consensus could actually go that far. And that's just me going on a limb here. So yeah, I mean, luckily here in the US, gay and lesbian union and adoptions have been going on for a little bit. There was a bit of rollback that was occurring under the prior administration, and honestly, I think government should stay the hell out of controlling that in the first place. It just should be allowed, period. We don't need to have these bullshit right wing, left wing discussions, right? We're fucking human beings. We're not going to make your kids gay. We're not going to make them lesbian. We're not going to make them trans. We're going to let them live their best life, right? Um, like for instance, I really wish I could bear a child. I've wished that since I was a little kid, and I've known I can't, right? And even though growing up, like for instance, I used to actually have these thoughts about being able to do it. Um, and I know, the medical industry is making some sort of swing, and there's always that possibility that maybe, who knows, in how many years it could potentially be a possibility. I also know that even if I could, there's a lot of people that still aren't going to be accepting of me or of my child if I could. Because, of course, there's a lot of people here in the United States that would rather call me an it or a he, she, or something of some other, derogatory nature because, they can't accept me for me. And what I think's really fucked up about that is I don't see how the hell I have ever personally affected people because I don't think I have. And I don't think trans people do in general, right? Unfortunately, I was actually reading something from Facebook the other day, and another minority person made a comment saying that, trans people, keep doing these things that are just, so absolutely absurd. And I'm thinking, that's what's so damaging. It's like minorities going against minorities, right? It's pushing um, one line against another, and that's always the way. Um, Honestly, Louis, um, I don't know. Vol Volava Luvula. Hello, good day. Um, Louis, this is always a really hard topic of discussion for me. Um, I think in certain spaces, with certain friends, certain people, um, honestly, certain friends, certain people, certain spaces, I feel safe. I feel, how should I say it? I feel safe. I feel loved. But I also know that at any point in time, there's always that potential possibility of knowing that I may not always be loved or I may not always be in a safe place or space because there are going to be those people, right? Um, for instance, like I can't like personally afford to get like laser electrolysis done on my face. So naturally, there's times in which I have to like shave multiple times a day. And obviously I can't do that, working in the restaurant industry. And that's the thing. So I'll say this much. So far I can't afford it off the Hitman Hobbit. I can't afford it. I haven't had medical insurance for a while. And like I said, I've been in a position where I've not been making enough money the last few years. So it's not it's not as easy as, just doing it, right? Like I mean, the one benefit, you have living up there, I think in Canada, is you've got universal healthcare, right? Like down here in the US, we don't have that. Because it seems like we've got politicians that think um, politicizing private healthcare is a much better form of handling things when we've seen other countries do things better, right? I think Canada's a prime example. The UK is a prime example. Now, don't get me wrong, there are problems potentially with those healthcare systems because you may not always be able to get into an ER, or you may not always be able to get in for a mental health examination or screening. But at the same time, though, we need to work on fixing what's wrong here in the US so that people are actually able to better be taken care of. And that's the truth. And Hafti Hitman Habit, I get what you're saying too. Um, and the thing is, I think word reclamation has a place, right? Like to me, sissy is not good for me, right? But I'm okay if it's okay for somebody else, as long as you're accepting of what it means for you, you know? Um, and Louis, that's the thing. I am, um, I am personally happy. I'm in a much better state of mind than I've been in the past. Um, but don't get me wrong. There's been those times, right? There's been those times in which I think in the back of my mind, do I really want to exist here in this world? Is this world good enough for me, or am I wanting to yell, "Stop the train! I want to get off"? And that's the thing. I've been in those positions before where I want to scream and shout, "Stop the fucking train! I want to get the fuck off." Because everything that's going on is not positive, right? Like there are things going on in my life that could be so much better, but at the same time though, I'm learning stuff aside from that I'm learning that, and I think part of it's time, part of it's maturing, it's growing up. And I'm not saying that I don't have my dips here and there, because I do have my dips a lot, right? Like, I mean, I will say this: mental health is not a steady road 100% of the time for anybody, right? Okay, Hoff, no problem. I'm sorry. And you know what? Honestly, oh, and Volva Luvula, John, hello. Um, so that's the thing. Sometimes I think it can. Okay, and I know for me, um, it has been partially due to that. But there's a lot more to it than just um presentation, right? Sometimes, being able, depending on the person, right, being able to go on hormone therapy, for instance, is really, really liberating, right? And being able to go on hormone therapy has been, a lifesaver for me for sure. But at the same time, though, going on hormone therapy has also done other things, right? Like it's um made my mind a little bit more susceptible to what the female side of my bloodline has gone through, especially with mental health. So, like for instance, my mom has bipolar. She's bipolar schizophrenic, and luckily, I've never been diagnosed with that. And at my age, I probably never will be. Generally, you're diagnosed at a much younger age, but she did develop it later in life. So there's always that potential possibility it might happen to me, right? But for me, for instance, I'm borderline. I have borderline personality disorder. I got major depressive disorder. I got generalized anxiety disorder, and luckily, I'll say this much: um, there for a while, I was on like 7 different medications, um, to try to help me get through my day. And I'm saying luckily because I don't think this is something that everyone can do. Um, but I was able to go off all my medications because of going through therapy for quite a while. I used to do DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, which has been incredibly helpful for me to be able to go through things, right? Manic and others, she's heavily medicated and used to go through cycles. And you know what? That's the same thing for me too. Um, and I think okay, so let me just say this. I don't think it always affects your personality trait. I think there's always something about you that always remains, right? Like, I mean, the fact is, like for instance, growing up, I um really like cars. And yeah, there's a lot of women that like cars too, right? But like for me, I love cars, and that's never changed. Going on hormone therapy never changed that. But sometimes it can affect your mental state. And actually, um, I go to a clinic in Chicago for hormone therapy, and they are what's called informed consent. And so, informed consent, the way it works is they meet with you and they talk about the benefits of you potentially going on. So they'll talk to you about the negative things that could possibly happen to, like for instance, going on estrogen for a trans woman is going to develop feminine features, which is always positive if you're trans, right? Like, especially if that's something you want. You want boobs, you want weight distribution to your ass, you're probably going to get it, right? But at the same time though, it can also partially affect your mental state. It can affect it can affect your mood. It can affect the way your moods swing, right? Like it's not just one thing, right? So I mean, the thing about, potentially being hormonal is real, folks. It's real. Getting hormonal is real, right? And there is actually like group discussions that happen a lot on forums and stuff online where we talk about, where I've seen people talk. Well, I'm not gonna say we talk about because I don't personally talk about it. Like I generally stay out of things, right? So Hoff, driving, fixing sometimes the sleek lines, right? Like sometimes I find that attractive and fun. Beer Brick Sona Pup, but just want to say, even through the whole concept's personally foreign to me, it's worth pointing out that no matter how different any two people are, we are nonetheless so much more similar because we're human beings. John, I want to say this right now. You're absolutely right. The thing is that no matter what, if I cut myself and you cut yourself, we're going to bleed the same color, right? It's going to come out red. It may be blue inside of our bodies, but it's going to come out red. And that's what people tend to forget. Just because I may not be, a heterosexual cisgendered woman or man, it doesn't mean that I can't be happy. And that doesn't mean that you can't be happy for me. Or, vice versa. We may not have the same understandings, but I will tell you this, growing up, you know how it goes. Can you keep a 9 to 5 job 7 days a week? I can't. 4 on bad weeks. Mom, maybe 2 days a week. And see, that's the thing, Hofty Hitman Hobbit. Gig work's been difficult for me. And the last 2 years doing it, I would say that, working full time's been difficult. Mainly because of having those potential people misgender you, and yeah, it's happening, being a waitress too, and it hurts, but at the same time though, I would say in my current state of mind, I'm capable. In my current state of mind, I can. Exactly. That's right. Not going to go on. No, you're totally fine, John. You're totally fine, and I agree with that. Exactly. You do not have to know each other to show love to a stranger. That's right. And I want to actually say something about that really quick because you make mention of that and it's so fucking true. Folks, remember something. That no matter who you talk to, no matter who you meet on the street, no matter who the stranger is, what you say can have a valuable impact on whoever you're talking to. And it doesn't matter if they're LGBTQIA plus or cisgender or homeless or whoever they are or however they may identify. Whatever you say to someone can have a major effect on them, right? And I learned that over time. And like, there's been days in which, like for instance, my last job that I was in before gig work, when I was in logistics and I had a driver call me beautiful or say happy Mother's Day to me, even though, I may not be a mom, right? I don't have kids. But even though I may not be a mom, it meant a lot because it reinforced who I am, right? I'm not even going to say who I am on the inside, right? It reinforced who I am, right? You see me as a woman, right? You see me as another human being capable of loving someone and being a parent to a child and showing them love. And I'm not saying all parents should be parents, right? I'm not saying that at all because let's be honest, it's unfortunate that there are some circumstances in which it seems like parents want to disown their childs because they're LGBTQIA plus, and it's disappointing, right? Because if you're a parent and you disown your child, you disown your own fucking blood over something like that. I want to know why. I want to know why. Is it because you feel like you failed as a parent? Do you feel like you failed as a parent? Or is it because maybe religion is pushing you to believe something else? Like, for instance, folks, if you want to talk about religion, we can. It's not something I like talking about a lot, but for instance, I'm a Christian, okay? And I don't agree with everything that certain Christians say or evangelical Christians say, right? Because I believe there is such thing as an Old Testament and a New Testament, and some people just want to read both and believe that both are in existence, but then they want to ignore the fact that there was a New Testament and things changed, and that Jesus wanted us to love one another as we love ourselves, right? And that's what fucking kills me right there. A lot of people focus on something that was in the Old Testament and only the Old Testament, then they don't want to look at the New Testament, right? They don't want to say, oh, well, maybe, Jesus or God or whatever was saying in the New Testament that, oh, maybe we should actually care about people, right? You've worked in addictions, mental health for almost 19 years now. There have been so many times I've bumped into detox clients in the street letter, and they said how much an interaction meant or even felt it saved their lives, and I never knew at the time how much it meant to them. Honestly, Chan, I agree with you. The last 4 or 5 times I guess I was hospitalized. I can't even remember how many times I was hospitalized, but let's just say this: 2016 to 2018 was rough for me. I went in for multiple SI attempts, a lot of SI ideation, and it wasn't easy for me. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I still have passive SI. Occasionally it becomes active, but like I said, for me, luckily, I would say that there's that reset switch for me where I can go to bed and shut it off and wake up in the morning and maybe feel better. And I say maybe because you don't always feel better waking up, right? And sometimes you go into the spiral depression state where you want to sleep, 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 sleep. And I will say this: the one positive thing about me actually having a set schedule job is now it's harder to do that knowing that I have to go somewhere. And I'm not saying that everyone's capable of doing that, because for a long time I wasn't capable of doing that, because for a long time, especially after my fiance died, I was a emotional wreck. Going to work wasn't possible for me because I just couldn't function at work. And I just felt like sleeping was a better solution. Constantly sleeping. Um, I will say this: I am very grateful that the attempts that I have made have not worked. Even though I was really close once, extremely close, I actually overdosed on quite a few different psychiatric meds. Oh, Hoff, okay, no, I totally understand. Gotta set aside 4 hours sleep but 8 hours rest, so got an hour left. Okay, Hoff, well, I totally understand. Listen, I understand if you need to go and get some sleep. If you gotta get some sleep, I totally understand. But if you want to have more conversations like this in the future, don't forget to maybe potentially hit that follow button or even stop by my Discord. Um, and we can have conversations in there too, or you can actually just DM me on Discord. Because I think, like I said, it's important that we can have safe spaces and places to talk to each other, because a lot of times I feel like there isn't always that welcoming environment.
Unidentified aircraft. You've entered restricted
Thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it.
By a Cessna Citation CJ4.
But that's the thing, though, I don't think there's always that welcoming community here on Twitch even. And it's unfortunate, because I don't think mental health is always something we want to talk about, right? Mental health is always kind of like that niche thing no one wants to talk about, because it only matters if it's affecting you. And for some people, they don't understand mental health because they've never gone through the struggles that we may have, right? And I personally believe, at least with talking with a psychiatrist I saw in a hospital once and a therapist that I've seen multiple times, I feel like something I learned when I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which was back in 2017, I never realized I had it until I was diagnosed with it, right? And it's funny because I actually fit like most of the of the DSM criteria for borderline. And I never really realized that that was a mental health issue, right? Because it became normal for me. And unfortunately, normal is kind of one of those things that you say to yourself, what really is normal, right? Um, I think society or mental health clinics can place a label on anything they want to, right? Because obviously that's what the social condition seems to thrive on. It thrives on focusing on labels so much that we forget about the fact that people are still human on the inside and on the outside, right? And that's the reason why I made the comment, what John said earlier about, working in mental health even. The fact that, just having a interaction with someone once can positively or negatively affect someone later on in their lives. So I always think it's personally positive to have a positive interaction with someone, right? Because I've had those interactions before where, someone will come out to me and just being that supportive person that can say, you know what, I've gone through this. Let's talk, right? Let's talk. Let's have a conversation about what we need to do to potentially make things better. I think that's important. It's very important. But it's late night for me, so I'm coming on here because I tonight just it was a rough night for me. Yesterday was a lot, well, not yesterday, but Saturday was a lot more rough for me because just the way the attitude was working um with some people. It was difficult, right? And I'm coming on tonight because I was reading some things in a Discord group I belong to. Very supportive, part of the LGBTQ community, very, very supportive group. They were talking about different we're talking about different communities in the aviation field, especially in the sim area, that are starting to become more accepting of no longer requiring dead names. And by dead names, I mean legal names on their systems, even though they don't require to see an ID. Like, look, let me tell you this right now. If I want to, let's say, fly on an ATC network, a lot of them have stipulations that say you need to use your real first and last name to join the network. But here's the thing. It's not like I'm applying for a US passport or a driver's license or a birth certificate or a state ID or a province ID, country ID, or a government ID. Why can't you just identify me as who I am? Who I identify it to you as? And it's funny because back in college, I remember going to a human resources person because of some issues I was facing with, how should I say it? Something I don't like talking about, but dead naming being done intentionally by people that were working in the healthcare part of the college. So like the nurse, the school nurse, for instance, right? And you would think in the back of your mind that it would be totally unacceptable because it would affect mental health. And what was fucked up about this is, they obviously had a school therapist too. The school therapist, though, was okay with following how you identify and what your name is, right? Not what a name is on a piece of fucking paper, right? And so to me, I think it's really important that we stop focusing on what a name is on a piece of paper, a legal tender piece of paper, and start focusing on who people are and how we identify. Because I think that's the one way to actually make positive influential change is by recognizing people as they identify, right? And don't get me wrong, there's going to be the proponents and the people that are going to say that, oh, well, this means anyone could just go ahead and do it. Look, folks, I'm going to tell you this right now. I want to say this to any fucking buddy that comes in here into this stream, or anybody that needs to fucking hear it, because obviously there's some people that say, oh, well, you know, people could fake being trans so that they can go into women's or men's bathrooms because that's what they want to do. Let me just tell you this right now. For me, old Papa DK, hello, how are you doing, my friend? Hopefully you're doing okay. For me, I want to say this, and I want to say this out loud so everyone can hear it. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about the fact that I'm not a woman-born woman. Okay? So I wouldn't want to wish someone having the struggle of gender dysphoria on anybody. It fucking sucks. It really fucking does. If I could change everything about what I have in between my fucking legs, I fucking would. But I don't have the money. And the fact of the matter is, here in the US, it's almost $100,000 without insurance to go ahead and get surgery. Why do you think most trans people that want to go from being male to female actually go to a country like fucking Taiwan, right? Why do you think that happens? It's because it's cheaper. They do a lot more of those surgeries. And you know what's unfortunate? Insurance doesn't want to fucking cover it, even if you do have insurance. Because you know what? Our political system plays too much into that. Here's the thing. If you want to call gender dysphoria a DSM criteria, you know, honestly, I probably should, right? I probably should. But I think, you know, there's some restrictions that would probably prevent me from moving right now, right? Like, you know, the pandemic, right? But the thing is that, you know, what all is it going to change? I want it for me, but is it really going to change the way people perceive me? Potentially. It might. It may. But it's hard to say if they're actually going to perceive me differently just because of it, right? It's not, it'll change how I feel about myself, but it's not always going to change the way people feel about me separately as a human being. And it sucks because I want that for myself, but I also want people to view me as being that person. And not everyone will. And I get that. But that's what people don't understand, right? People don't understand that a lot of people think in the back of their minds that people will fake being transgender so that they can go into women's bathrooms to record them using the bathroom. And that's just not what trans people actually fucking do. Trans people go to the bathroom to do what anyone else does. Pee your shit and get the fuck out, right? Or, you know, if you're a trans woman, we may go ahead and do our makeup in the bathroom just like any other woman would, right? That's something we do. It's not anything different than anybody else. We're not there to spy on you. We're not there to molest or abuse you or hurt you or make it an unsafe space for you. We need a safe place too. If I walk into a men's bathroom, I'm probably in as much danger as a woman walking into a man's bathroom, a woman-born woman, right? Probably am. In fact, I'm probably even in even more danger because I'm trans. And especially if someone recognizes the fact that I'm trans, I'm in more danger than they are. Because unfortunately in this fucking country, there are people that believe that they should rather shoot me than me being alive. And folks, there's a reason why I have a license to carry a firearm in the state that I live in. Now, that doesn't mean that I carry one at work because I can't, right? But folks, I've had a gun drawn on me. I've had a gun held to my head because of who I am. Right? And it's unfortunate that I feel like I have to at times be able to protect myself with a firearm. And unfortunately, you know, I haven't carried one in years because, you know, I've had, you know, past SI, and, you know, sometimes I don't always believe that's the best thing for people that have had suicidal ideation. So Legally, I can still own one because I was never committed by a mental institution. I voluntarily gone because I didn't feel good. That I knew I was a threat to myself, right? I've done that because I felt like a threat to myself, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't have the ability to protect myself or feel safe. Most here bathrooms have no doors except in stalls, so this should be a no-brainer. Exactly. And you know what? Here's the thing: if I'm in a women's bathroom and I am doing what everybody else is doing, why should anyone really fucking care? I sit to pee, I sit to poop, I wipe, I wash my hands, I may put on makeup, or I'm just gonna wash my hands and leave. All I do in a bathroom, folks. I'm not a sexual predator because I'm trans. I'm just a human being. You work at DTOC, which is technically part of the Order of St. Joseph, a Catholic institution. When the question of which bathrooms a trans client would have access to when they admitted to the center, there was no discussion. It was their choice. It was so, and that's beautiful. That is fucking beautiful, John, because I'm going to tell you this right now. Unfortunately, there are a lot of places in which, even here where I live in Indiana, it's dangerous to go to some mental health institutions because if you go to those, they will not give two shits because in their mind, the only thing that really fucking matters is what your legal sex is. And mind you, of course, I've actually had mine changed on my license. Mine's been changed on my license because there was a way around it to at least get it fixed. But you know, like my birth certificate, for instance, I haven't been able to update because of the cost. There's court cost involved to get it done. And it's just, it's fucking ridiculous what a trans person actually has to go through. And like I said, I wouldn't wish being trans on a worst enemy even. It fucking sucks. It really does. We don't want to have to go through this. We really don't. And don't get me wrong, every individual person's different, right? Like, I know some trans women that don't want to have surgery, right? And I get it. That's fine. You be you. I want to have surgery because it'll make me feel more complete. But then again, you know, I also went on estrogen because I thought it was going to help me feel more complete. And there's days in which I don't feel complete because I'm on hormone therapy, right? So, and old Papa, I just want to say this right now. It's nice to see you come in here into the stream. And I know that, you know, we're probably on better hours, at least right now, for you to be able to watch me and talk and have a conversation. But I'm grateful to have you here. And I'm sorry I haven't been able to be by. I've been so busy lately with work, and I'm actually a waitress now at a restaurant in the town where I live, and I just started that Thursday, so it's nice to at least have a set schedule again, but it's interesting. Both culture and institutional hoops to jump through just to live. And that's the problem, right? Um, so I'm going to talk about this a little bit because it's not something I generally talk about, at least not outside of close groups of friends, right? Or what I would call as my chosen family, because realistically, my blood family to me is just kind of dead, and I shouldn't have pushed all of them away, but I did because of my mom. But I will say this. So talking about, you know, those cultural institutional hoops to jump through just to live, my last admittance for suicidal ideation was back in, I believe it was, I gotta think about this really quick. So I was fired from a job back in August or September. Let's see here. It was September of 2018. Now, let me go ahead and give you a little bit of background as to what happened. July, my fiance had the end of June, I think it was June 30th of 18, my fiance passed away from heart failure. And he died at the age of 37. So he passed away from heart failure, and unfortunately it ran in his family. I was very well aware of that. It was difficult dealing with some of the struggles he had to go through, but I was in love with him, right? And I think that, love always tries to find a way, right? And even though it was difficult for me towards the end of the relationship because of what was going on, and I say the end of the relationship because I mean the ending being his death, his passing, right? But when he passed away June 30th, I was in a really bad state of mind. In fact, less than a week after that, I ended up going in as a volunteer admit into the hospital. Um, and I go into the hospital, and where I initially went, I had gone to before because they were very accepting and treated trans patients well, right? And I think that that's a very important process to go through, especially if you do struggle with some sort of mental illness, is that you are in a safe place and space for who you are to be treated as who you are and not to be dead named or to be misgendered, right? I think that, a clinical environment needs to be suitable to actually being productive for mental health. Now, here's the thing: I'm not saying that they may not have um, been able to keep me from potentially killing myself. I'm pretty sure that they would make sure that no one tries to kill themselves. But the way that you may feel after you leave the hospital may be a totally different scenario if they're going to dead name you and misgender you, right? Like you may actually end up doing it after you do it. But needless to say, though, I go in there for a voluntary admit, and I ended up talking my way out of getting admitted because they wanted to transfer me to a state hospital, because they had no beds left. And what was fucked up about this whole situation is I still had my phone. And generally speaking, if you go in for mental health admits, your phone gets taken away from you. It's essentially the equivalent of going to jail, right? Um, you lose access to electronics, to any media appliance that you might have, because, of course, it's pretty well known that social media can be very, very destructive and very negative, especially for people that are having a mental health crisis. So I still have my phone on me, and I was looking up reviews. And I know you're probably saying looking up reviews of any mental health hospital is a bad idea, but I actually found some reviews stating that this place was very trans unfriendly. And my biggest concern at the time was actually not being able to get my estrogen, right? Um, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to get it because they may not agree with it. Or they may not be able to have that script on handy. And so I ended up saying, no, I'll be fine. I faked coming in here or whatever. And I had to do that for my own protection to not put myself in an even worse environment. And is there that potential possibility that I could have hurt myself afterwards? Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Um, I was pretty self-destructive growing up, at least. Cutting myself was never like a matter of uh, if I was going to. It was more of a when, right? And it was more of a escape from the mental reality of what was going on in my world, right? Like a physical distraction to a mental issue. And cutting yourselves is kind of a big thing, and it happens a lot with people that are suffering with depression or borderline personality disorder or anxiety disorders, because it's a distraction. It's a way to feel something physical, because the last thing you want to feel is something mental, right? So um I'm not going to say that cutting myself didn't happen after that, but it was never to kill myself. It was more of just a distraction at the time. And less than a week and a half later after that, I ended up going back into the hospital. And what had happened was, oh my God. So I got admitted for a little bit, and I was in there for like a week and a half, and things were going a little bit better. Well, I got out, and the problem was I was having trouble being able to work. I was calling off a lot, and unfortunately, I ran out of PTO time. And what's fucked up is a company I was working for 7 years actually ended up terminating me. Um, uh, no, it wasn't always a call for attention, because I hid mine too. I didn't want people to see it. That was the last thing I wanted people to see, because if people saw it, then obviously I was probably going to be admitted somewhere, and I didn't want that. So no, it wasn't a call for attention, unfortunately. Sometimes I wish it would have been, because maybe it would have been, better for me at the time, but it wasn't at the time. But needless to say, though, I ended up getting fired the day before my 7-year anniversary with the company I was working for. And even though I had a doctor's note for that day, they terminated me. And so a few days later, I ended up back in the hospital. And I was at a point of not being sure if I was insured or not, and at a completely different hospital. And honestly, I had a good experience, but a bad experience there at the same time. So for me, it's been one of those situations where people have asked me, would you go to get help again? And I'll tell people, it depends on where I'm going, right? And it's unfortunate to even say that, right? That just tells you how fucked up in the United States healthcare is for people that are trans, right? Especially mental health care, right? It's unfortunate to say that depending on where you go, you may have two different experiences, right? Or multiple experiences. And unfortunately for me, what had happened was I was actually seeing a therapist in Chicago. And she triggered me a little bit because she was asking me about my fiance passing. And she asked me at one point, well, how do you feel right now? And I was honest, and I probably shouldn't have been, but I was like, well, I'm feeling a little bit, I'm feeling some SI. And when I said that, she ended up talking with the head therapist. Now, mind you, she was a student therapist at the time. So, she was able to see me pro bono at the time because, I didn't really have insurance. But she's a student therapist. So she ended up talking to the head therapist, and they decided to call the police to have me taken to the hospital. Now, I was not forcefully admitted, but get this shit. You're going to love this. So when this event happened, I was taken to a hospital in Chicago via ambulance. And I have never ridden on an ambulance in my life, ever, yet alone going in as a patient somewhere. And so when I had stepped out of the office, because they told me, that they called 911 to have me transported to get help. And in a way, I was grateful for that, but I wasn't, because it wasn't really what I needed at the time. I really needed just to talk through the event instead of being forced into an environment that I didn't really need to be in. And I know that sounds crazy, right? But at the time, they ended up forcing me into a hospital because of me saying that, I was feeling a little bit suicidal. But, I also said to her, it's not something that's active right now, though, either, which you would assume a therapist would understand that. Well, this was a new therapist too, so this wasn't the same therapist I'd always been seeing. Now, my therapist would have known that we just need to talk through what's going on and just, work through it and do other things, right? But no, this person didn't understand. So when I stepped out of the therapist office, there were a couple Chicago police officers and firefighters, of course, coming up to meet me, and they're like, oh, you can go ahead and sit in this chair. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to. I can walk. Thanks. And they were actually kind of shocked by my attitude. And I was like, well, I have 2 feet. I can walk. I'm fine. And so they let me walk outside, and they forcefully transported me by ambulance. It doesn't mean I was not handcuffed or anything like that. They just told me to get in. So I got in. They put my seatbelt on. That's all they did. And they took me to the hospital with sirens blaring for no fucking apparent reason. But needless to say, though, I was transported in. And the reason why I said I had a bad experience with this is when I got in there into the hospital, they put me. So the problem is, in Chicago hospitals are kind of like this a lot, especially for psych patients. And I think part of it is because of how big the hospital environment is, right? But generally very, very small rooms that they isolate you to until they can transfer you up to a different ward. And what had happened was they transport me up there, and at the time I was having really bad gender dysphoria, and I was not in a good state of mind because of them basically forcing me into the hospital, right? And like I said, I was not forcefully committed. So you're going to love this, right? There was no court order signed. There was no 72-hour hold. And I only found this out because of later, right? But here's what happened. So I was transported up to a room that had a bathroom that we could walk into with a door, which was kind of nice, and there's a shower and whatnot. But I was in this environment for a little over 72 hours. I think it was about 84 hours that I was in this environment for. And so there's 3 beds in there, no curtains really in between the beds, and of course, they've got a security guard up there with another person, and a nurse and a security guard, and of course, they're focusing on making sure that their mental health patients stay safe, and I get that. That's fine. Well, when I told them I need something a little bit more friendly for me, they ended up putting me into an isolation room. And I shit you not, it was like basically like a jail cell as far as sizes go. But the isolation room was a locked room with 2 doors. And realistically, the only way I could go to use the bathroom is if I would knock on the nurse's door, and then they would open up the door just to send a security guard to come over to let me go use the bathroom. And folks, let me just tell you this right now, being trans, and work and dealing with mental health even, right? Like, I mean, something as simple as shaving, like shaving your face, is really fucking difficult when you have to ask to use the bathroom and then someone has to observe you shaving to making sure that you're not going to hurt yourself, right? And I get it, you give someone a razor and you're thinking they're going to hurt themselves. Well, here's the thing. The last thing you want to do to a trans person is keep them from being able to feel better about themselves because something they feel or see on their face is going to fucking trigger them. Right? Here's the thing. I don't mind you observing me to make sure that I'm being safe with a razor, but what I do mind is putting me in a room where I cannot use the bathroom in a moment's notice. Without having to ask somebody and then having to wait potentially 15 to 30 fucking minutes just to go pee. Right? So here's the problem. So at the time, my insurance was dropped because of me being terminated from my company. And so the hospital was in a position where they weren't sure if they were going to be able to accept me or not. So the fucked up thing is I kept telling the psychiatrist that was coming up to see me on a daily basis until the normal psychiatrist got in that Monday morning, because I went in on a Friday. Okay. So I was basically stuck there through the weekend. But I kept telling the psychiatrist, look, honestly, it'd be better for me to just go home. I think that what I said was taken completely out of retrospect, and it was treated as a situation where I was an imminent threat to myself when I wasn't. And I explained that to her. I was like, look, it was passive. And she's like, well, yeah, I understand, but you just lost your fiance, you just lost your job, and we just want to make sure that you're safe. And I was like, look, I can respect that, but you're also putting me in a situation where you're keeping me in an isolation room. And this is making my mental health even worse. And I was like, I think a lot of times, you may want to keep people safe, but you can also make people worse by keeping them in an environment that's not really safe for them. So needless to say, they had me in that room for about 80 some hours. And what had happened is, through this entire event that's going on, okay, I did not get admitted, I believe, until Monday night into their mental health ward. And what had happened was, they were going to transfer me to the state mental health facility. And of course, as we all know, in the United States, it doesn't matter even if you're in a liberal state or not. State facilities are generally some of the most underfunded facilities to go to for mental health. And partially because of that, you also get a lower quality of worker, and a lot of people just don't respect trans people. So my saving grace through all of this, the only reason why the hospital even accepted me, was because of my prescription for estrogen. Because the state hospital could not get it at their pharmacy. So, needless to say, the only reason why I was able to be admitted there was because of that. But that event, because of me being locked up in the room like I was for so long, really fucked me up. So, of course, that's the reason why I tell people, I think getting help's important, but I also think that it's important to make sure that you go somewhere that's going to be accepting and safe, and not be an environment that's going to make you worse. Had I had insurance, I would have been admitted that night into their mental health ward, which would have been great. Okay. But because of what had happened, that just tells you how fucked up the United States healthcare system is. And it's something like I said, I don't talk about, outside of, personal friends or what I would call, chosen family. And I don't talk about it because it was a really fucked up experience for me. So with that being said, that Monday morning, I was finally able to see the head psychiatrist for their unit, and we talked for a bit. And he is like, and I told him, I was like, look, I explained to this therapist I was talking to that um, it wasn't active SI, it was passive thoughts, right? And the head psychiatrist looks at me and he's like, honestly, he's like, I think you're right. And he's like, I don't know why we've kept you all weekend, but he's like, I will say this. He's like, I'm not going to sign a commitment on you because I don't think you really need a commitment. And I was like, then why the hell was I held all weekend? He's like, I don't know. He's like, but you shouldn't have been. But he's like, at the same time, though, you've had quite a few traumatic events happen to you in the last, um, in the last couple few months. And he is like, do you think it might be beneficial to you to get some health care? And I was like, well, fuck, I've been here all weekend. I might as well. Well, I'm going to tell you this right now, folks. That became a 3.5 week ordeal. I was almost there for a month. Um, Now, had I had health care, it wouldn't have been a nightmare story. It would have been a successful story for me. But at the time, it just wasn't because of what all happened. So, I have these conversations for a reason. And I'm talking about mental health for a reason because, like I said, I just started as a server Thursday. I'm a waitress now at a restaurant, and I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean everything's great about it. You're going to have some people that are not going to be so happy, or you're going to have people, yell at you or scream at you. And we're, here in the US, severely underpaid for what we do. And the only way that, a server really makes it is by getting tips. So, with that being said, I'm having the conversation because, I was misgendered on Saturday at one point, and it was causing a downward spiral for my own mental health. And I was thinking about it, and I had a situation happen today that just scared the crap out of me. Just because, like, I honestly I haven't had a stable, like, 9 to 5 job or something scheduled for a while. So, having a scheduled job right now is actually really helpful for me.
Unidentified aircraft. You've entered restricted
Oh my
airspace.
gosh.
You've been intercepted
Hello,
by a Cessna
hello.
Citation CJ4.
Thank you for
Please
following the
dock your wings to
channel.
acknowledge.
Glad to have you here. But that's the thing though, General Hypen, welcome. Glad to have you join in tonight. But I think it's important to have these conversations because people don't always see what's on the other side. Um, and for me, um, I'm grateful to have experienced what I've experienced in my life. I'm grateful that I'm still here on this planet. I'm breathing. Because if I wasn't, what would be different? You know? Um, and I'm not one of those people that believe in the whole, how should I say this? So, in the back of my mind, I don't always, and I think this happens a lot with people that have depression, right? You don't always think about how you're going to affect others, but realistically, people have to understand, I don't personally believe in the back of my mind that suicidal is a selfish expression. I don't think that's the case at all. In fact, I think it's a way to scream because you just don't believe that, going on is going to be good. That there's nothing else that's going to be positive for you. And so for me, I hear a lot from, some people, it's very, very selfish, and you don't think about others. And it's like, here's the thing. The last thing that someone thinks about when they're suicidal is how somebody else is going to feel, because in their life, they're having the worst moment in their life, right? And I think that's something we have to focus on. So I think mental health, especially in the LGBTQIA plus community, is very important. And I think it's important that, we make sure that we focus on caring for each other. And if someone does need help, is helping them reach out to services that can help them. You know, there is here in the United States, there is a suicide hotline, for instance, and I'm going to go ahead and shout this out really quick because we are in the conversation of mental health right now. And there's, of course, a song that was written um, called 800-273-8255. And the reason why this song was written and called this was because this is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And folks, I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm not always very good with calling things like that. And yeah, you know, you're going to talk to someone that's completely anonymous, but like for me, I actually have better success with actually talking to other people, friends. Like there are friends that I can talk to that I know that if I'm having a bad day or something's going wrong in my life, that I can reach out and they're able to at least try to talk me down off the cliff that I'm in. But folks, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is very, very important. If you do need help, please reach out. They also have the ability to chat, which I have actually done that before. I feel like, you know, not talking directly over the phone is helpful, but there's also other lifelines out there as well. Um, let's see here. There is let me look it up here really quick. I think these are very, very important. There's actually a lifeline called the LGBTQ plus lifeline. Um, and folks, you know, that's the wonderful thing. You know, these lifelines exist for a reason, right? And luckily they basically become part of that same exact area, 800-273-8255. And I'm just gonna say this right now, folks. If you think that there is nothing in your life worth living for anymore, I want you to question yourself, because I can tell you something right now that, you know, I'm glad I'm still here. I'm glad I'm still kicking, because if I wasn't right now, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you and being able to tell you about my experiences. And if I can at least tonight have one person, just one person, be able to know that, you know, there is someone there that supports them, whether it's me or someone else in this community, or if it's having a lifeline to call, I'd much rather you have that experience than to feel like you're all alone, because at the end of the day, you're not alone, folks. No one is truly alone in this world. You may feel alone because of what you're going through, but I can guarantee you, you're not alone in what you're going through. And if you do feel like you need help, if you do feel like you need someone to talk to, reach out to these lifelines. In fact, if you would like to reach out to me on my Discord, send me a direct message. It may take me a little bit of time to reply, but I will reply to you, because I think it's important that we preserve our lives. Because folks, you know what? Just because we're LGBTQIA plus, or whether you're cisgender, or however you may identify, um, I think it's important that we be able to value the human experience a little bit more, right? I think every individual human being is valuable. We all are valuable in some way, shape, or form, and there's a reason why we're here on Earth. So, exactly. And, you know, honestly, John, I agree with you on that. Um, it's unfortunate because there is people that can act as advocates for patients, right? And sometimes acting as an advocate does restrict you, because, you know, it may risk losing your job, right? But I will say this much: you're not going unnoticed by those of us that you're advocating for. If you're advocating for us, I will tell you this: we are 100% respectful of what you're doing, because advocates for people that are suffering through a mental health crisis or an addiction crisis, even, it's important to know that we've got someone there to advocate for us and be there for us, because we don't always have that same thought process, right? Because we feel alone. And that's the one benefit I will say of, you know, being in mental health, even, right? It's just, honestly, there's actually been times in which I've been thinking about going back to school and getting into mental health care myself. Um, because I feel like I could potentially be that type of person. But, you know, of course, going back to school requires money that I don't have. Um, maybe one day, right? I mean, I may not be able to do it right now, but maybe in the future I'll be able to. Um, because at the same time, I am very much a people person. I'm someone that believes in being there for each other and for other people. I think it's important. You're welcome, John. You really are, because honestly, like I said, it means something. Like, I mean, last time I was admitted, for instance, like one of my nurses was one of the biggest advocates for me, and I explained to her why, like shaving was so important for me, and um, they were understanding of it, right? But I think the hospital didn't have the full stance of understanding how important it was for my own mental health to be able to do it every morning. Because like a previous hospital I'd gone to, they wanted you to shave in a room with everybody else that's doing other self-care things every morning, and I told them I can't do that. It needs to be private. And they didn't understand that that could be done in private, because, and I get it, I will say this. I think in the mental health industry there's a lot of problems where especially in hospitals and other environments, that they're severely understaffed, right? And it's ways to cut corners and stuff like that. But especially in the United States healthcare system, mental health is insanely understaffed, and beds are at an all-time high rate, and they have been for a long time. And honestly, the pandemic didn't help that. The pandemic, I would say, made things a lot worse, because for some people like me, even, that have been doing gig work for a while, like doing Lyft, for instance, right? That was in a way my therapy for quite a while, up until the pandemic started, because being able just to have other people to talk to, and it didn't have to be about mental health. It was just having other people to talk to was a way I was able to cope, right? And not everyone is able to cope the same ways. So I don't know. I find it interesting. I really do. And see, that's the thing. I agree with you, John. I do. I really do. I mean, because a lot of people don't understand that, right? Here's the thing: you may not be able to claim what someone is going through, but if you actually listen to someone, and you actually, like you said, sincerely listen, right? There's a big difference, folks, between listening and hearing, right? This was something I remember hearing a teacher in my high school say: are you listening to what I'm saying, or are you hearing what I'm saying? And I think there's a big difference between the two, right? Because hearing means you're physically hearing something, right? Like, I could hear an airplane take off, but am I really listening to it? Am I listening to a police siren that goes by, or am I hearing it? Am I listening to what someone's saying, or am I just hearing it? Listening requires you to actually process and think about what someone is trying to say, right? And the problem is, there's a lot of people in the mental health industry that don't always want to listen. Sometimes they just want to hear. Exactly. Exactly. Hearing is a very physical thing, but you have to use your brain to actually listen to someone, right? And so that's the reason why I've always said, I think mental health advocates, and it doesn't matter, what position you're in, and I really wish, how should I say it? I don't always feel like psychiatrists are very good listeners. Sometimes they want to hear what you're saying, because a lot of times, at least, and this has been my experience with psychiatrists, as psychiatrists want to hear what your symptoms are so they can treat the symptoms, but they don't want to listen to the situation you're going through. Therapists are much better at listening than they are at hearing, right? Because they actually want to process what's going through your mind, and maybe work on different types of therapy to actually be beneficial to improving the environment that you're in. So with that being said, um, I prefer someone that's able to listen than rather just hear. And John, thank you so much for stopping by. It actually means quite a bit to me, because realistically, um, like I said, it's not something I enjoy talking about, because it reminds me of, past things I've dealt with. But at the same time, though, I think it's really important to talk about them, because it's ways to be able to better process what maybe does need to be fixed in healthcare, not just here in the US, but worldwide. especially dealing with people that are transgender. You know, it's one thing being a cisgender, but being transgender and dealing with mental health is a completely different thing. And it's actually being able to address the care correctly and just respect people for how they identify and what and their name they identify with, right? Whether or not they legally got it changed like I did, right? Or whether or not they legally got their gender marker changed like I did, right? But it's actually respecting the individual and listening to what they got to say and not just hearing it. So, and see that's so true. Exactly, because and don't get me wrong, I know why they want to hear it. It's all a checklist, right? It's all a checklist. Like, you know, let's just do this for the fun of it, okay? Because I haven't done this in a minute, but let's do the DSM for borderline personality disorder, and let's go ahead and see if I can actually find the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for borderline personality disorder. So from the DSM-5, they're going to log into the site. Let me see if I can find a different one. Or actually, let's do Mayo Clinic. Okay, so because I have borderline personality disorder, and actually, like I said, I do agree with what a psychiatrist once told me about this. She actually said to me that transgender people tend to um, actually be diagnosed pretty frequently with borderline, and the reason for that is part of it is it's the way that we've grown up. It's part of our transition. To think that society doesn't have any effect on someone's mental health is absolute bullshit, right? But let's go ahead and talk about borderline personality disorder really quick. And I'm going to just read this off from the Mayo Clinic really quick. So, signs and symptoms may include an intense fear of abandonment, even going to extreme measures to avoid real or imagined separation or rejection. So, I actually had a friend that's been trying to reach out to me for over a month at this point to try to hang out. And I'm not going to lie, folks, I am the DSM definition of borderline personality disorder. You're going to hear all this and you're going to think, yikes, Quasi Guru is completely unstable. She's nuts or she's loco, whatever you want to say. But here's the thing: at the end of the day, though, this is part of who I am, right? Like this is something that I deal with on a daily basis, and even though I may not be medicated for it anymore, um, I have gone through quite a bit of therapy that's been able to help me get through it. But intense fear of abandonment, even going extreme measures, avoid real or imagined separation or rejection. So, um, I have a group of people that I will stay more attached to, but the people that really want to be around me, that I should probably pay more attention to, there are times in which that fear of abandonment allows me to push them away. Because even though it's not a real fear, and even though it's not something that's going to be separation or rejection from them, I do it anyway. Because it's almost a protection slash coping mechanism, but it's also extremely self destructive. I feel the overburdened, disorganized, and disjointed mental health system, at least here, is a big reason for that. There are reasons for things degenerating to processing. People undeniably flies in the face of what ought to be considered meaningfully helpful. Absolutely. A pattern of unstable, intense relationships, such as idealizing someone one moment and suddenly believing the person doesn't care enough or is cruel. Perfect example of me, right? So like now mind you, I'm getting better with this over time, especially after I was diagnosed and knowing what's going through my mind and how I'm processing things. But believe me, I can go from 1 minute to believing that one person cares for me 100% completely, and unfortunately it's the people that are always the closest to me, and then to believing the person doesn't care enough or is cruel, right? Like, I mean, it's a completely unstable way of doing things. And mind you, of course, it may not be realistic for most human beings, but this is just the way my brain works. Rapid changes in self identity and self image that include shifting goals and values and seeing yourself as bad or as if you don't exist at all. Yeah, that happens all the time to me. All the time. Periods of stress related paranoia and loss of contact with reality lasting from a few minutes to a few hours. Disassociation, folks. That's basically what that is. And believe me, there have been times in which, and mind you, I wouldn't say it's happened recently because it hasn't. Okay. But I have had disassociation moments where um, I won't remember something that happened for a few hours, and it's almost the equivalent of blacking out, right? From like drinking too much. And mind you, I haven't really drank anything in the last 2 years. Like I basically cut alcohol out of my life completely. And it's not because I was having issues with it, because I wasn't. I've never actually been anything close to being an alcoholic. I mean, I was a college student once, right? But I was never an alcoholic. But for me, it was just more of a, I don't really, I socially drank. Um, and generally socially drinking, I would get drunk if I was around a group of friends or something, but that was once in a blue moon. Which was also one of my favorite beers to drink growing up. So, well, growing up in college. So, um, let's see here. Impulsive and risky behavior such as gambling, reckless driving, unsafe sex, spending sprees, binge eating, or drug abuse, or sabotaging success by suddenly quitting a good job or ending a positive relationship. Hello. That's me. Suicidal threats or behavior of self injury, or often in response to fear, separation, or rejection. Yeah, that happens a lot. Wide mood swings lasting from a few hours to a few days, which include intense happiness, irritability, shame, or anxiety. Oh my god. Reading me out loud, ongoing feelings of emptiness, inappropriate, intense anger, such as frequently losing your temper, being sarcastic or bitter, or having physical fight. Hello. Certain levels understand, but to be fair, I feel the. Yep, absolutely. Exactly. Honestly, a blue moon with an orange. So good. Now, I will say this. I did actually have one. What was it? I think it was about, I believe it was end of May, beginning of June. One of my friend's sons was having a graduation party and I was invited. So I ended up going, and they had a bar because it was at this yacht club. And don't get me wrong, folks. Look, I am nowhere near being rich, but this yacht club is in a very relatively small town in the state of Indiana, and it's not a richy, hoity-toity place at all. In fact, I would say, most people that have boats there, they're not really what you would classify as like, modern day yachts, right? They're just boats. But needless to say, though, I ended up having a blue moon there, and it was kind of interesting, having a drink after 2 years not drinking at all. I had that drink and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel buzzed. I think that's all I need. And then I think, maybe a few nights later, I had a shot of rum, with a friend while we were flying on Flight Simulator. But that's, realistically all I about do. Um, but since then, I haven't had a single sip of anything to drink. And like I said, it's not, anything serious. It's just, I don't drink anymore. So, but folks, if I want you to leave here with anything tonight, I want you to leave knowing that no matter who you are, you're not going through things alone. There's always someone else that may be going through something similar, or somebody else that wants to be able to help you get through life. And if you do need help, seek it. Don't let a bad experience keep you from seeking help if you need help, because at the end of the day, folks, I believe that being human, there's some bad things that'll happen in your lives, right? And you may think that things aren't going to get better, but I can tell you this, undeniably so, things do get better. And they sometimes take time, right? And naturally so, they take time. But folks, at the end of the day, remember something. No matter what happens in your life, no matter how bad you think you are in a relationship, things will get better. And whether that relationship's with your family or with a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whoever, things can get better. But you have to live to see it. And I know that living part seems difficult at times for a lot of people, but um, I can promise you this, that those things do get better, folks. With that being said, Quasi Guru is not flying tonight. Obviously, I'm not on the flight sim tonight. I'm not flying. I'm not trucking tonight. I'm coming to you from a I'm being vulnerable tonight. That's what I'm doing. I'm being vulnerable. I'm being honest. I'm being an open book. I'm telling you my prior experiences with dealing with mental health in a hospitalized environment. I'm telling you about my prior experiences about going through shit, right? General High Pen, much love to you, my friend. Much love to you. And John, we can't predict the future. Past bad experience, people or services that are supposed to help don't need to characterize future experiences. Transference. So true. And that's the thing. You know, folks, if you don't know, let me just say this really quick. There are a lot of things I learned from one of my hospitalizations, and actually it was multiple at that hospital. I think it was 2 or 3, but one of my hospitalizations I learned quite a bit, and there's actually some really powerful TED Talks, right? But I'm going to go ahead and drop this link in here really quick. If you want to hear a really influential speaker talk about the power of vulnerability, here's a TED Talk for you from Brene Brown. 20 minutes long. Brene Brown is essentially a mental health expert. It's absolutely incredible to hear her talk about the human connection. But the power of vulnerability is just intense. Like right now, for instance, me being vulnerable right now, I'm putting myself in a position of telling you who I am, telling you that I'm trans, telling you that I have mental health issues, telling you that I'm working through shit, right? And that I've been working through shit for years now. And me telling you that I'm no longer medicated. I'm not telling you that everyone can be no longer medicated, okay? I think everyone is different. But I think for me, what was most helpful is therapy. I'm not saying that's always the most helpful for everybody, but I think there is a potential really powerful thing about medicine mixed with therapy that's very helpful for people that are going through shit, right? And I say going through shit because it's not always the same thing for everybody, right? But Brene Brown, though, folks, the power of vulnerability. I'll tell you what, she is an amazing speaker. She's written some amazing books, but absolutely incredible. And like I said, you know, I'm being vulnerable right now telling you things, but I'm telling you about things that makes us understand a little bit more about the human connection, empathizing with each other and loving each other, right? Because at the end of the day, that no matter what happens, when I cut myself, I bleed red. You cut yourself, you bleed red, right? One of the first nights I was working at the restaurant, I ended up falling and breaking a glass, and my hand landed on a piece of glass. And at the time, I didn't know I was bleeding immediately, right? You know, glass is sharp. And I get up, and the restaurant manager was like, "You need to get some better shoes. I don't want you falling and getting hurt." And one of the people asked me, they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm completely fine." I was like, "Yeah, I just took a tumble, but I'm actually okay." And it's funny because realistically, I wasn't in pain. But it's not until I looked at my hand that I realized something was going on, right? And looked at it, and you know, of course, I got sent home because of the shoes and just getting different shoes, which was fine, right? I mean, I was more embarrassed than I was anything else, but I was glad I didn't get hurt, right? Like seriously hurt. I was fine. But at the same time, though, you know, I had something going on with my hand, and I had to go get that taken care of, and I had to, you know, go ahead and take care of getting new shoes and stuff. But I don't know, folks. I guess what I want to leave you with tonight is knowing that no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what shit you're going through, things can get better and will get better. Yes, it takes time, and I want you to understand that there's a reason why you're here on Earth, and whether or not you realize that or not, there's always a meaning. And I don't care if you believe in a higher power or not. Um, there's always a meaning for you. You're here for a reason, and I can promise you that. Exactly, and you're right about that. You know, me being in this state right now of being vulnerable, you know, here at almost 2 a.m. in the morning for me over by where I live, right? Don't get me wrong, I've had trolls come into my streams before, especially after I started being more open about who I am. When I changed my about section on my Twitch page, I have the occasional troll stop by, right? And I wouldn't be shocked if a troll stops by during this stream because it could potentially happen, right? It could always happen. I gotta get a drink of water, folks. I apologize. But at the same time, though, there's other people here in the stream, like you, John, and General Hypen, and maybe some others that have been following me for a bit, that realize that, and Hoff, let's not forget about Hoff. Hey, you have a great night too as well, okay, Hoff? Have a great rest of your night. Get some sleep. I know you got to get some sleep. You said you can only be on here for about another hour, but get some sleep. Take care of yourself and remember something. No matter what happens, I'm here for you. And that we all share similar experiences, and it's something we can work together with each other on. But like I said, folks, if you'd like to, you're more than welcome to join me in my Discord. I'm on my Quasi Guru live stream channel right now if you feel like talking, speaking up. I understand if you don't want to, if you're maybe a little bit shy or whatever, but like I said, I think tonight me having this conversation is important because it's my experience, but maybe someone else is going through the same stuff, right? Or maybe someone else has a similar experience as I've had in the past, and I think it's important to talk about it. I really do. Folks, I have been awake now since, oh crap, I've been up since, I think I initially woke up at like 7 this morning, but I ended up waking up, falling back asleep all the way up until like 11. Now it's almost 2 a.m. for me, and realistically I should be tired, but I had a Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee before I went to work at 4 o'clock today. Wow. It's bizarre to think that caffeine's actually kept me up that long. I guess when, you cut back your caffeine intake significantly, things change. But I think at this point, probably going to be looking at getting off here in a minute. But I want to thank you all for stopping by tonight, saying hello to me, and sharing into my experience of, what I've gone through and some of the struggles I've dealt with. Folks, if you're new here and you haven't yet already, don't forget to hit that follow button. I'd like to thank you all for stopping by. You really do all mean a lot to me, no matter what. Yeah, definitely Bandit Detox, and I totally understand it because honestly, caffeine is a shit drug when you think about it. Right, like me, for instance, I've been a caffeine-aholic most of my life, okay, and I've cut back most of my caffeine use. Oh, Peter Mooney, hello, how are you? How are you? You know what, honestly, I can stay on and talk a little bit longer. But no, I'm having a conversation tonight about mental health and how it affects people in the LGBTQIA plus community. And honestly, I'm pretty sure you could probably catch some of this stream even. But for me, folks, like I said, okay, John, no problem. I'll see you in a bit here. But no, for me, for instance, it's one of those things where I've dealt with a lot in mental health, over the last several years, right? And right now, I'd like to say that I'm probably in one of the best states I've ever been in. Not like, physically in the United States, because I think that's like a non-given because of where I live, but states of mind, I would say, right? I think states of mind are completely different than actually talking about the state that you live in. But I'm probably in one of the best state of minds I've ever been in. So, right now, me being vulnerable, me talking about my experiences with dealing with prior hospitalizations even, and talking about, how I've been treated, going through the process of transitioning in the last God knows how many years. Like, I think I started my transition, like I said, back in like 2008. So, it's been a while. It's been a while since I started that. But honestly, I do know this much, though, too. Most people, at least I would say, have been more positive about my transition than they've been negative. But unfortunately, as mental health goes, especially borderline personality disorder, which I do have. Unfortunately, we tend to focus on the negative a lot. I'm much better at focusing on the positive that I've dealt with, some different types of therapy, like, dialectical behavior therapy, which is great because that's helped me a lot, especially in the past with like disassociation and stuff. Being able to focus a breath somewhere or being able to distract your thoughts off of something else so that you can actually come back into reality for a minute, right? Honestly, borderline personality disorder is probably one of the worst. I don't know. I'm going to say this, at least for me, my BPD is probably the one thing that drives me nuts the most, right? And mind you, like I said, therapy's helped a lot because I've been able to utilize some of those therapy techniques in order to help distract myself when things are starting to happen, right? But it sucks when, especially, like one of the biggest definitions of borderline personality disorders, the oh crap, which one is it that's really the one I don't like the most? Pattern of unstable, intense relationships, such as idealizing someone one moment and then suddenly believing the person doesn't care enough or is cruel, right? I do that all the time, and especially people that are close to me. And it sucks, right? Because it's also the same thing that attaches yourself to the intense fear of abandonment, even going to extreme measures to avoid real or imagined separation or rejection, because we create these spaces, right, where we're fearful of abandonment, but then again, we also take measures to avoid the real or imagined separation or rejection. So there's times in which I will intentionally push people away, even though realistically I don't want to do it, but maybe I'm feeling like they don't want to be around me because I'm not doing well, right? Or something like that. And I'll say this much. Like I said, I'm in one of the best mental health states I've ever been in my life. Okay, I am. But that doesn't mean that tomorrow that, my roommate or my best friend won't be in my mind shit list of thinking that they don't like me or love me anymore, right? Because unfortunately, it's the smallest triggers that unfortunately like set my brain off into like this stupid freaking panic that it goes through. And Peter Mooney, trust me when I say this, I know how it feels. I really do. Um and it's unfortunate too because it's just, it's something I've lived with a lot. And what's sad about it is that, like I said, when I was actually initially diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, it was back in, it was my first hospitalization for SI since I was a kid. I was like 13 and I got hospitalized. But I was hospitalized at like 29 years old for suicidal ideation. And it was a voluntary commitment, right? It wasn't, involuntary. I've never been involuntarily committed, which I'm grateful for, right? I'm definitely grateful for that. But if I had to be, would I be okay with it? Probably not, right? I don't think involuntary commitments are ever a good thing. I mean, they can be at times, right? But like, I don't think they're a good thing, especially, for actually wanting to get better. I think, voluntary is a better thing because most of the time when you're voluntary, there's a reason why you're voluntary. It's because you want to get help, right? Um, Even though sometimes the mental health system in the United States is very, very pushy on the way that they deal with that. And, of course, they would much rather you voluntarily commit than get a court order because that's a lot more work. But needless to say, though, when I was initially diagnosed with BPD back in 2017, it was late 20, I think it was like July 2017 when I was diagnosed with it. But I was hospitalized for suicidal ideation. And when I was diagnosed with BPD, the psychiatrist said to me, she's like, a lot of transgender people actually get diagnosed with it. And I want to say this out loud really quick so everybody can hear this, right? But think about this really quick. Mental health is kind of this, it's this ever flowing thing, right? how should I say this? So it's not all based upon chemical imbalances 100% of the time in your brain. Some of it's very much socialized, right? And BPD is something that is almost a socialized thing. Now, of course, can your brain be affected chemically? And that may be why you have BPD, yes. And could it be very well because of how you were socialized growing up or how you were treated during a transition? Absolutely. Right? The fact of the matter is, I know that not every single person out there is going to like me, and there are some people that are a threat to my existence. And the reason why I have a license to carry a firearm is because of that specifically. And no, I haven't carried a gun in quite a long time, to be honest. But when I initially got my license to carry, it's because my life was threatened at one point, at gunpoint. And I didn't want to be just a statistic. And I know this is going to sound crazy, folks, but I'm going to bring it up. So the year 2020, HRC reported, I believe it was Human Resource Campaign.org reported that there were 44 transgender people killed in the year of 2020, and that was by violent means. So generally gunshots or stabbings or something else. And, you know, of course, that was generally because of hate, right? Because someone did not like that human being because they were trans. They were transgender people. And folks, I'm going to repeat that again really quick just so that you can hear it, because I think a lot of people don't understand that we're not trans. We're not its. We are trans people. People. Let me repeat that. People. Because a lot of times people get stuck in this mode where they think that we're trans. Right? No, I'm a person. I can guarantee you I'm a person. Trans is just a label because I'm not cisgender. Okay? That's all that means. I'm still a person, folks. I promise you I'm a person. I'm a human being. I'm breathing, I'm living, I'm doing something else. Okay? So with that being said, respect people, folks. Understand that your interaction with somebody at any day of the week, any time of the day, no matter who they are, will affect them in the future. When I was still in logistics and I was a manager and I used to have people say Happy Mother's Day to me, it felt really good, even though I don't have any kids. Just to have that affirmation that I'm being recognized for how I identify. And I'm not going to say who I want to be, but who I am. And I hope you understand that. I know a lot of people may not understand that, right? A lot of people won't understand that at all. They're going to say, well, it's who you want to be. And I'll say, no, that's bullshit. It's who I am. It's who I am. Not who I want to be. It's who I am. So with that being said, I feel like I'm just trying to find a place to step. Another way to sidestep this and just keep talking about it. But folks, it's difficult. I'm not going to lie, you know? I'm putting myself in a very, very vulnerable position. I'm telling you more about Quasi Guru than you probably want to know or need to know, right? But I'm doing it for a reason, because I want people to know that no matter who you are, no matter what you're going through, that time ultimately is what helps us be able to process things that are going on in our lives, right? So no matter who you are, no matter how you identify, no matter what your name is, time helps us. No matter how bad a relationship is, no matter what your situation is with the family, it's time. And you know, for me, I had to do a lot of things growing up that I didn't want to do. I had to separate myself from family because I felt like family was destructive at the time. It was mainly my mom, unfortunately, because my mom was, I'm not going to say my mom doesn't love me. I'm sure she does. It's more of a situation of separation to keep my own mental health in check, right? Mom would misgender me. She would dead name me a lot. And I always partially wonder if that's because she's getting older. that's the Alzheimer's, or if that's the Parkinson's disease, or if that's the bipolar that she has, or if that's the schizophrenia. Is it a medical condition? Is it a mental health condition? Is it the fact that she really doesn't love me? Or is it the fact she wishes I was someone else? Who knows, right? But I know for me, it was a toxic environment for me to stay in. So, of course, as a lot of trans people do, we migrate away from our blood family and we find our own chosen family, which is generally a group of friends that we are closely identifying with and that we are able to talk to, and that people that respect us and love us the same, that no matter the way we identify, the people that want to see the real us, right? And folks, I'm grateful for this community that I've built up here on Twitch, and I'm not gonna lie, it's been an interesting several months. February we started off as a Twitch affiliate, I guess, and c'est la vie from there, right? Here we go. I'm gonna allow that through. I don't know why Automod's going so crazy, but John, what's fascinating is the issue isn't even complicated. As far as I can tell, whether it's addictions, mental health, gender identity, sexual preference, race, etc., anything, if our interactions just start as human to human, everything else pretty much automatically falls into place. And I agree with you 100%. And what's sad is there are minorities pushing other minorities against each other because their experiences are anything but human to human, right? And it's like we've said before here tonight, right? Like I've been talking about before tonight. The fact of the matter is that if I cut myself, I'm going to bleed the same exact color as you, right? So really, tell me what's so different about each other. You know what I mean? Tell me what's so different about each other. Folks, I want to invite you again. And like I said, you don't have to jump on the voice channel with me, but if you feel like you need someone to talk to, feel free to reach out to me via my DMs here on Discord. You can come join my Discord server, folks. I mostly do Flight Sim 2020 content here on this channel. I have once before streamed American Truck Sim. I drove truck there for quite a bit of time, actually. I've done some other things in the logistics industry between being a driver manager, a yard spotter, a truck driver, doing regional work, some over-the-road work, some intermodal work. I've been a driver manager, a load planner. I've done quite a bit in the logistics industry, folks. So, if you do see me playing American Truck Sim, just know that, it's me having fun, right? Because it's a game. It's not real life. So if I'm doing something stupid in a game, like, doing 100-mile-an-hour in a semi-truck, something that you wouldn't want to see done in real life, understand it's just a game, right? It's not completely real. It's not the way that I generally fly a flight sim, where I'm trying to keep things the most real as I possibly can. So just saying that out loud right now, folks, for some of you. But I am seriously thankful for everyone that's joined in tonight to say hello to me. Even for those of you that have been here in the chat, even lurking, right? Because I know it's difficult to talk about these things, right? Because mental health, unfortunately, in most societies, and I'm going to say most because it's kind of like this mostly around the world, is very, very taboo. It's a subject we don't want to talk about. Oh, Papa DK, I'm glad you're still here. I really am. I really am. It's actually got me pretty excited. I'm really happy you're still here. But mental health, unfortunately, is something we don't talk about enough, right? And I think mental health, especially in the LGBTQ plus community, especially for trans people, is not something we talk about enough. Because our experiences, especially those of us that are trans or genderqueer, for instance, right? Completely different, right, than somebody that might be cisgender, right? But I will say this, though, too. We also share similar experiences. And it's all about that human connection, folks, as John said here earlier, even, right? Human to human interactions, right? Those human to human interactions actually are more powerful than you ever might think they are. They really are. Because you got to remember something. At the end of the day, we may not all have the same sexual preference. We may not all have the same gender identity. We may not all be cisgender or heterosexual or homosexual or asexual or pansexual or bisexual or lesbians or gay, or I could go on for days, folks. But at the end of the day, we are all human. And it's time that we start acting like it. We're all human. Let's treat each other as if we're all human. Don't treat somebody like they are something that they're not. Don't call somebody an it because you do not agree with said person. We're fucking human. Start loving people. Start embracing people and being there for them when they need you to be. Because at the end of the day, folks, every interaction counts. And remember that as you're going along during your days, make compliments to people. Right? That one little compliment you make to somebody could change their entire day. That one little compliment can make somebody that is suicidal realize that maybe they've got something else going on in their life. Right? Give someone a compliment. If you see someone struggling inside of a grocery store to carry their groceries, offer to help them. If you see someone struggling to reach something, offer to help them. If you see someone that seems to be sad and depressed, say hello to them. Don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution. That's what matters at the end of the day. Be part of the solution, folks. Be part of the reason why people want to live. John, I'm going to read this off. In terms of differences, I think of it as this way. As an example, as a straight dude, I don't know what it's like to live with being attracted to another man, but why in the world would I think someone else's love being any different than my own? I think the same approach is valid for basically anything in that sense. And John, you're right about that. You are. And part of it is, I've always been a fan of word reclamation, right? Reclaiming words that you may identify with. And for some of us, those words are going to be completely different. Right? Like, I think Hoff was in here earlier saying, you know, if they ever see like-minded people, they don't mind being referred to as sissy or it. For me, that doesn't fly with me. I don't like it. But word reclamation is a very powerful thing, right? But in my own mind, it's not just word reclamation, folks. It's like you said earlier, John, it's that human to human interaction, realizing people are human, that we all bleed the same color, that at the end of the day, really, the labels don't really mean anything. It's all about loving one another and showing people that you care. Because if you can't do that, what's the point? And what I don't understand is why some people are so hateful towards people in my community. Vice versa. Is some of it political? Maybe. Is some of it because they had one bad experience with one person? Maybe. Right? Deceased friend of mine was a nurse. She used to say, I do my best to smile at every person I meet because you never know. Whew. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional over that one. even though I'm talking about it and I'm saying it it's a little bit different. Somebody else says it. Um, yeah, do my best to smile at every person I meet because you never know, it might be the only smile that person sees today. Look, folks, life is short, right? Don't take it for granted. Seriously, don't take it for granted. It's not worth taking for granted. I remember back when my father passed away in 1999 from leukemia. Um, I don't know. That was always a interesting relationship with me and him because my dad was pretty abusive growing up, but love hate relationship as much as weird as that might sound. Dad paid for my. It's gonna sound crazy, folks, but I was 10 years old and I got to do my first discovery flight because of my dad. So even though there was a lot of abuse in my family, um, that's the one really good memory I had. And for me, it was a love hate relationship because of that. He was really supportive about me getting into aviation and potentially flying and becoming a pilot. And to me, that was the biggest benefactor of my father. But he was incredibly abusive. So, but I remember trying to pull myself back here. And I know all of you that are watching are probably going to stay anyway because I'm being vulnerable, being open, and being honest about what's going on. But um, even though it was abusive, the one good memory I had was just enough to still have some sort of love and decency for what happened. And Peter, when you uh, posted that quote from your friend that was a nurse, um, it reminded me, and it made me jump back to that point because there's little things that can be said that can trigger a memory, right? And triggered the memory of my dad. But it reminded me of a nurse while he was in a nursing home. I got to see my dad one last time the night before he died, and I knew my dad was in pain. He'd gone through several mini strokes, um, and he was in pain. And I wanted him to not be in pain anymore. Even though, I don't think any of us really ever truly understand grief until it hits you. And especially when it hits you when you're a child, it's completely different than when it hits you as an adult. Of course, there's still that hurt and that longing for needing that person still, right? But um I was 10 years old when my father passed away. And that night before he passed, that nurse said something very similar to me. And she said, I just want you to know that I'm going to tie a knot at the end of his bed tonight. And this knot is to help signify that he's ready. And I spent that night at a friend's house. Um, and as weird as it might sound, I woke up the next morning at the exact time that he passed away. Um, I'm sorry, folks. I'm trying to catch my breath. But when he passed away, I woke up at the same exact time that he passed, and I immediately knew there was something wrong, and I was supposed to be going to school that day, and I didn't know what was wrong. I just knew there was something wrong, and we all got into their SUV to head off towards school, and they told me I wasn't going to school that day, that I was going home, and I didn't know why. And of course, Mom told me, and I just broke down crying. So, um, once again, folks, just remember this, that no matter what, every experience, every human interaction that you have, and remember, it's human to human interaction. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, or bi. Here we go. I'm going to pull Lady Gaga, folks. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, or bi, lesbian, transgender, life. I'm on the right way, baby. I was born to survive. And I was. I obviously was, because shit, I mean, one time that I actually overdosed really well, I somehow still made it, right? I still made it. I'm still living. I'm still breathing. So, obviously, whether it was a higher power or whether it was the doctors and the nurses that were watching over me at that hospital that day, I made it. And there's a reason for that, obviously, right? It's because I obviously still needed to be here for something. So, folks, I'd like to thank you for joining in tonight. It's been probably one of the longest streams I've ever done on my channel, but I thought it was important to have a conversation about mental health tonight, especially in this community, because this community sometimes goes ignored, especially with mental health. And it's important that we have these conversations, that we have these discussions, and it's important for people to know that we're here for one another, that you're not alone, that there are people that believe in the human to human interaction. They don't all believe in labels, that know that we all bleed the same damn color, and that really at the end of the day, that's what matters. Ooh, I'll tell you what. I've told everybody here tonight that I don't drink, but man, I'll tell you what, I feel like I need a drink or a cigarette or something after this, and I don't smoke either. Ooh, it's been rough tonight. But folks, I'd like to thank you for joining in tonight. It's been fun. Um, Maybe fun's the wrong word. Fun's probably the wrong word, because this has been a really vulnerable position I put myself in tonight. But thank you for joining in tonight. I know it's not the normal quasi guru stream that everyone's interested in, with me flying on flying on VATSIM or doing something else. But chatting with you has been amazing, folks. Thanks, John, for joining in. Folks, really quick, once again, I'm not stroking this out here just to have more followers, but if you'd like to, don't forget to click that follow button. That way you're notified anytime before we depart or we have another one of these chats. I just want you to know, though, that if you're in this community, in the LGBTQIA plus community, or if you are a person that's having a mental health crisis, folks, don't forget, you're not in this alone. We're in this together. Feel like you need someone to talk to, reach out to me, even on my DMs on my Discord. I'll go ahead and drop my Discord link in here for everybody one more time. I'd like to thank you all for joining with the Quasi-Guru Twitch channel tonight, as we had a conversation about mental health here in the LGBTQIA plus community. Quasi-Guru, though, unfortunately, is getting tired. This VOD will remain up. I'm not going to take it down. And this VOD will remain up, no matter how well that affects me, good or bad. But folks, thank you so much for joining in. I'd like to give a special thank really quick to my moderators here on the channel, Abby 37 and Riri 61. Much love to both of you. Thank you all for joining in tonight. It was amazing to actually talk about mental health. And John, thank you so much for joining in to share your experience with being a mental health / addiction worker. Very, very refreshing because obviously we're all in this together, right? Peter Mooney, thank you much for so much for joining in. Old Papa DK, much love to you, my friend. Really, I mean it with all my heart. Thank you for joining in tonight. Once again, folks, I am mentally and physically exhausted at this point. I worked from 4 to 10 tonight, plus I had to stay over to do cleaning and stuff like that. So I will say this, though, we will be back. I do not have work here today. Well, I guess it's today officially because it's 2:32 in the morning for me. So maybe we'll come back with a flight sim stream later on tonight. But that, or maybe I'll come back for another conversation about mental health and where we need to be to support each other. But folks, thank you so much for joining in. Have a fantastic, wonderful rest of your nights. And I hope that some of you that might have been lurking, if you have been lurking, maybe get a different perspective of what somebody else may be going through. But take this away as the one thing to remember tonight, folks. Human interactions are the most important thing ever. And that having one positive interaction with somebody, whether that's complimenting someone or helping them, that could be the position of life or death potentially for somebody, right? Or maybe you made someone's day and they will never forget that. Maybe that's the addict's turnaround point, or maybe that's someone's point that's suicidal's turnaround point to realize, oh my God, what am I thinking? What am I doing? What's going on in my life? It's so bad that I think I have to take this path. All right, everybody. I'm emotionally and physically exhausted. With that being said, thank you so much for joining with the Quasi Guru Twitch channel tonight. Have a wonderful rest of your night. And we will see you in the next one. Have a great night, y'all.